Hey guys, welcome to Simple Advantage. My name is Tony. I hope you guys are having a great day. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of a concept that's been being discussed in the technology industry. And this is going to have a little bit to do with the FCC, a little bit to do with big tech and ISPs, which are internet service providers. So there's been a little bit of debate lately and a little bit of, I guess, attention being brought to this issue. And the issue is that big tech has basically made a fortune on the internet, right? Everybody knows that Facebook has a ton of money, Google has a ton of money. A lot of people consider those companies almost like monopolies. And the reason that these companies have so much money is they are using basically the internet and basically have built their software and their algorithms and their websites to be something that everybody uses. You know what I mean? So most people use Google, a lot of people use Facebook, and a lot of people use streaming services. And that business has been extremely lucrative for these companies. And so the problem lies in that you have all these companies that are using so much data and so much internet capacity, but they don't pay for any of that, right? So the internet runs through infrastructure, whether that be fiber optic infrastructure, satellite, 5G, or copper, whatever. And so you have all these ISPs that build out that infrastructure. So you have, the AT&Ts of the world, Cox, you've got Starlink, you've got, a lot of rural, small-time internet providers too that build fiber throughout the country. And so a lot of these internet service providers are saying, these websites like Facebook or YouTube or Netflix, especially like the video platforms, they use more and more data every year, and the infrastructure can't keep up at that pace. You look at the difference between 4G and 5G, and how many years did it take to transition from 4G to 5G? And we're not even, fully transitioned to 5G yet. That's still a process that's ongoing. And most of America hasn't been converted to 5G yet. So you have a years-long process that's playing out, but these websites, they all demand more and more data every year. And so it's constantly increasing, especially as you have websites that are increasing their video quality. A lot of streaming platforms now let you stream in 4K, for example. And so when you have so many people using the internet, we'll take fiber trunks as an example. So fiber optic cable, it runs to different households, it runs to different businesses, and as it's being used, some of that capacity is taken up. And so what people are suggesting is that, big tech has kind of gotten a free ride on this thing for a long time. And should big tech be paying, basically, in order to help build this infrastructure that they are using and that they are, getting so much money from? Almost like a toll road. So, for example, you have a lot of trucking businesses, you have a lot of people just traveling, and you have toll roads set up on highways. And those toll roads are set up so that people will pay as they use that highway, and that money will be used to maintain that highway when it needs future repairs. And so the same thing is being discussed with internet infrastructure and all these companies that use and take up so much of that bandwidth. So I think that's really interesting. But a note on the CDC, or not CDC, sorry, too much COVID talk lately. A note on the FCC is that the FCC won't probably be taking action on this for a while because the FCC only has a temporary chairwoman at the moment, and I think they're also missing a chair. So basically, the FCC is like evenly divided right now between Republicans and Democrats. And so I don't think the Biden administration's like focusing on filling spots in the FCC very heavily right now. It's kind of a lower tier issue to them at the moment. So I don't think any kind of legislation on this issue is going to pass anytime soon, at least not until the FCC is like fully staffed and you have a permanent chair. But I think this will be an argument that we see in the electric industry before we see it in the technology industry. And this actually does involve some technology companies like Tesla, because we're going to see the same situation with the power grid and electric vehicles. And so we're already seeing some signs of this right now, and a lot of people don't even realize, but the United States electric grid is basically like at capacity right now. You look at a lot of the grid, not internationally, but nationally, and a lot of it is very old. So you've got equipment that's 50 years old, 70 years old, and you look at how much more electricity people use now than they did in the past, and so much of our grid is at capacity. And so there's a worry about all these companies like Ford making promises to shift to like entirely electric vehicles in the near future, because our grid's not going to be able to handle that additional strain. So like right now, people buy an electric car, they plug it into the power outlet and charge it, and don't really think anything about it. There's a few charging stations, and the majority of vehicles on the road are not electric vehicles. But say in 7 years, if the majority or even half are electric vehicles, there's no way that our current grid can sustain that. And so it becomes a question of, okay, obviously we're going to have to update our grid and increase its capacity, but where's that money going to come from? And so it's either going to come from probably one of three places: the taxpayer, the consumer, so anybody that has electricity service, your local electric company is going to have to pass that cost on to you, or it's going to have to be subsidized by the government, which would be taxpayer. So you're probably going to pay it either way. If you pay taxes or if you pay an electric bill, you're in those two categories. Or they can try to get that cost passed along from the electric vehicle manufacturers. So Ford, GM, Tesla, etc. Basically saying, okay, well, because you guys are putting this extra strain on the grid, you guys are going to have to pay for the upgrades that's necessary for the grid to keep functioning, if you want to pursue this incentive, right? And you're actually seeing some of this already occurring. You're seeing evidence of grid strain already in places like California and Texas. So everybody knows what happened in Texas with ERCOT and how the grid almost went down for months there, because you had so much ice that was affecting power production, whether it be wind or gas, that there wasn't enough power production to meet the demand of the consumers in Texas, basically. And so you actually had different distributors and different grid systems contributing to the Texas grid, redirecting into Texas to kind of save them from going down. And then another place that you can see it is California, where California has a whole lot of outdated grid infrastructure. And so a lot of it's like PG&E and companies that there's so much of it that they really can't keep up. And that's why California is banning some gaming computers and basically trying to go after different technology that uses a lot of power. Is they're trying to basically keep the grid running, because they don't have enough capacity for everybody right now. And it's so hot there too that people are running their ACs like crazy. And so think about, you add electric vehicles into that mix, and it's not going to be a good situation with the current state of affairs. So it's just an interesting concept. Do you guys think it is fair for, electric vehicle companies or big tech companies to pay a toll for the infrastructure that they are using? Or do you think that's something that, the taxpayer pays it for them? Like, kind of what are your thoughts on that? I'm kind of curious, but I think it's a very interesting topic. And I think it's one that will be discussed, especially in the coming years, as you see more and more demand for electricity and for data. And how are these companies that are actually building the physical side of that going to keep up? So yeah, interesting conversation, and I'd just like to get you guys' opinions on it and your thoughts on it.